Hey guys, and welcome to another Schematics update. This time we want to talk about Anno 1800. We means me at FoTV, and I'm joined by Blind IRL as per usual, and Sir Jonty from the land of Geekism. Hey guys.
Hi, sorry, I was just eating a lush fish pie. Excuse me a second.
I'm just over here skipping multiplayer sessions because I sleep in too much.
Okay, let's talk about Anno. We already did a video with Bellonaire's first impressions because we didn't had the demo or the beta then, but now we have all of us played the beta for a couple of days now. So let's start with our personal first impressions so far. Do you like it?
Yes, I do, actually. I was lucky enough to get early access to the beta, so I've been in the game for about a week now. But I will preface it with I've never played an Anno game before, so I'm coming to this with relatively new eyes, but I'm really, really impressed with it. I think overall, just in general, it's very polished for a beta.
So let's go with my experience with the franchise real quick. So I didn't know that this series existed until Dawn of Discovery came out, which for everybody in Europe is 1404. They never thought that the franchise would sell over in North America, so they really just didn't send it over here. It was almost impossible to find the previous versions of Anno in North America, but Dawn of Discovery was pushed very heavily over here, and I was able to pick up a copy a couple months after release back when that game came out, and I do remember playing quite a bit of it. I never got good at it. I don't think I ever actually finished it either. And then I picked up 2070 when it was on sale way after launch. Didn't play much of it, didn't like it all that much. It was pretty though, and I played a little bit of 2205 until I got frustrated and stopped because that game was very lackluster. This game is grabbing me a lot more like 1404 did. I think it's probably going to suffer from the same problems that all Anno games do, which is once you kind of figure it out, and then the game kind of loses a little bit of its charm. However, I assume that this game, once it releases fully and we have all of the tech, is going to be a lovely addition to the franchise, if nothing else. I think it's going to be pretty beefy, but you're right. From what I can tell, it seems that there is a very optimal way to play, and once you kind of get that down, there isn't much else to do, which I think is why they've added in these expeditions and stuff to kind of give you some ongoing content, perhaps. I mean, I think if you look at a franchise like SimCity, right? SimCity is kind of the replayability comes in the BS that happens. This franchise never really had the BS that happens. Like, there's the conflict and there's war, but it's predictable, and even the fights are pretty gamified and simplistic. So there isn't that much that can really go wrong if you know what you're doing.
Right. Another point about the fights is that at least 2205 had the fights on a completely separate map, which was kind of weird. So it didn't play a role at all in your normal playthrough. My impressions of the beta so far, by the way, are I like it. And full disclosure, I have a love-hate relationship with Anno, because in general I really like the games, gameplay-wise, at first at least, and as you already mentioned, Blind, as soon as you figure out how to do it, for me it kind of completely falls flat and I lose interest in it almost totally. So yeah, that's the point, but in general I kind of like the games, and I like the beta so far, and I had a lot of fun playing it. As already mentioned, it looks beautiful. They do an amazing job. I think in general, actually, what it really is there isn't a lot of high budget city builders out there. Like we have City Skylines, but I wouldn't exactly call City Skylines originally a high budget city builder. No, it was quite an indie team to begin with. I mean, obviously it's kind of blew up, hasn't it? But most city builders are coming from relatively small teams. I think the good thing that Anno has going for it as well is it isn't. I don't think it's completely procedural. I'm pretty sure the islands are being procedurally generated on the map, but they're coming from a base of pre-designed islands, and then obviously the actual people, whatever you want to call them, aren't all individually. You can't click on a person and see that his name's John. Yeah.
Gertlush or whatever. So because of that, and because the animations are pre-rendered and stuff, they are able to get a lot more sort of detail and stuff into them. So that's why I think it really shines as a very pretty looking game. One small thing I would like to do, and it really is a very small thing, I'd like to be able to zoom in a bit more. I'd like to really be able to get in there and have a look at what's going on.
I really want to turn off the UI for beautiful shots because it's looking so beautiful.
F1 gives you like a sort of cinematic camera, but if you just want to hide the UI, it's Control and G.
Oh fuck! I never found it out then.
I think if we want to talk about like viewing the game, one thing that kind of is a gripe for me is I actually think the viewport's a little small. A lot of like strategy games and top-down games, I have this problem where, believe it or not, all video games have an FOV, a field of view, and I find that in a lot of, this was a problem for me, especially with Frostpunk, was the field of view was so low that it actually made me seasick. This game doesn't quite do that, but it almost does that. This is probably a performance issue, and so it makes sense, but at the same time, if I had like a slightly higher field of view, the game would be a much more pleasant experience for me. I do start to feel it after about 7 or 8 hours, and granted, they do have that lovely voice telling you to stand up and go get a cup of coffee and stop playing the video game for a bit, which gets really annoying to me.
The voice of reason he's been dubbed on my videos. The voice of reason says, "Go and get a coffee." Yeah, I think actually it could go both ways. I think we could do with a little bit of a closer zoom, but also, yeah, I think the game could pull out a little bit more as well. Like, you should be able to see at least the whole of one island, I think. Maybe not be able to play that well from out there, because, like you say, of performance issues, but I think you should be able to zoom right out and be able to see at least the whole plot of land that you're on.
Let's talk about the gameplay a little bit. A thing that I kind of want to argue that we already mentioned is calling Anno a city builder, because on one hand it is, but in the core mechanics, I don't think we can call it a city builder because it's more like a production chain manager.
So this is something that me and Blind spoke about before, actually. He disagrees with me. I also don't think it's really a city builder. Okay, you're building a city, but the key thing I think that it's missing is there's no commuting. There's no reason to put anything near anything else, really, because the warehouses that collect the materials work in some weird dimension where they can all access the same stuff. Your houses where your people live don't have to be anywhere near the places they work either. They don't actually commute from one place to the other. And that, for me, is probably the key feature of an actual city builder, is having that sort of idea of space and time built in. Whereas with this, it is, like you say, it's more of a production manager. It's more of a resource manager than a true city builder, which is fine. But I just think you need to know that going in. I didn't, and was quite surprised, pleasantly, but I think some people may go into this expecting something a little bit different if they are new to the series.
I'm just kind of looking at the ceiling and going, there's different kinds of city builders, my dude.
Yeah, there is. But I think the word city builder has something in people's heads for a lot of time.
I mean, there's SimCity's idea of a city builder. There's Pharaoh's idea of a city builder. There's like Zeus, Poseidon, and all of those games that are a different kind of city builder altogether. There's Anno's style of city builder. There's the more god-like black and white games, which are called god games, but in many ways can feel like a city builder.
But the production lines are the main focus of the gameplay.
All I'm trying to say is rather than getting tied up in semantics, rather than saying it isn't a city builder, just letting people know that it is a production line based city builder, because there are some people who are not going to be happy about that, and I feel like that needs to be it should be our job to tell people that, I guess, that, bear in mind that this is a bit more focused on resource management and moving the productions around, as it is making sure the guy can get to the school and the church and whatever else,
Man, that was more a hot topic than I expected to. Let's talk about the atmosphere of the game. I really enjoyed the atmosphere.
I mean, it's an Anno game. That's what I expected. Anno games always have a very high level of polish, and with polish comes atmosphere. High budget music score, lots of quality voice acting.
You say lots of quality voice acting. They play it a lot, but there isn't actually that much. I definitely think they need to, and this may well be a beta thing, they definitely need to add more just more of it. The music, for instance, is stunning, like really, really amazing. But I think there are about 4 tracks, so they loop very quickly. And as we said, as I've already mentioned, it's becoming a bit of a meme. The whole Gertlush fish pie and turnips.
Something
the
that
size
you'll
of a
notice
head.
really quickly once you expand out is once you have the other regions, they have different voice acting. They also have different music. So once you get further into end game and you're jumping between the 3 regions and you have like the higher level of text, so the artisans have a different voice than the farmers, for example. Once you have the higher level text, you're going to have more voice lines, you're going to have different music, you're going to be jumping around and hearing different stuff.
See, that's interesting because I've pretty much unlocked the game. I have artisans, I've got the new world and everything, but I still hear Gertlush fish pie once every minute.
I do still hear Gertlush fish pie as well, even in the new world, but like they do have their other lines as well.
But like I say, I'm pretty sure that's a beta thing. I think they're probably that's a very last minute thing, throwing all those sort of bits of flavor text in and stuff, isn't it? So that doesn't worry me too much. And I think somebody's even told me that the developers have sort of come out and said, yeah, we get it. Those are a little bit intrusive, so they're looking at putting a separate option in just for that kind of I don't know what you'd call it really, that flavor noise, that sort of, like you say, not actually clicking on a building, just that stuff you kind of hear as you're wandering around. You're going to be able to turn that down a bit if you want to.
So I want to talk about one of my favorite additions to the game, which is expeditions. So we were kind of talking about how Anno gets kind of stale. The expeditions are a lovely addition, and I talked about this with Bellinair in the other video that we put up on this channel. But expeditions essentially, for me, in many ways changed the game completely, because it adds this almost choose your own adventure aspect to the game. And you can prepare with various items and trinkets to go with you for good luck, and then they're incredibly well written. And the voice acting and art that goes along with them is beautiful. Like, they're just absolutely awesome. My only concern is that there isn't enough of them, at least in the beta. At the point where I'd gotten, I was repeating the same events. And I really hope that, and this is with 25, 30 hours of gameplay, I really hope that we start to see, or we see either an expansion or free DLC or just more with the base game, for more expeditions, because I will say this right now, I would buy an expedition pack for this game.
They're really good, and again, they're great for sort of a bit of longevity, I think, because like you say, as long as there's enough in there that they don't repeat too much. The couple of things I'd like to see with them, I think the first one, they could maybe hold your hand a little bit more through it, because I kind of fumbled through it to figure out what was going on. So a little bit of a tutorial, even just setting your ship up and deciding what to take on your ship and why you're taking those things could be explained a little bit better. And also, this is such a specific thing, but I don't know if there's anything they can even do about it. Just the feel of them a little bit. It always felt like I was losing. It was just how badly I was losing. And just occasionally I didn't quite do as badly as other. I very rarely felt sort of like I'd accomplished anything until it popped up one time and it said, "You've done it." I was like, "Oh, okay, that's it." I don't know whether it's to do with the writing or to do with how the actual the mechanic is shown. I just felt a lot of the time that it was I'll just keep going and fingers crossed it'll come through, as opposed to me making good choices that helped the expedition.
While I agree with you quite a lot, actually, when I finished my first expedition, I was sitting down here for a minute and did some other stuff, so the game wasn't paused. And after I was finished with whatever I had to do, I still sat here on pause mode and was thinking about it for a little bit. If it bothers me and how much, if so. And in the end, I decided, well, that's actually how it works back then. They got a ship, they got resources, whatever they needed, and they just went somewhere. Sometimes even without knowing where to go or what to expect from where they are going. And it was just a gamble, basically, if anyone comes back alive, and maybe with some nice... While I see your point, I kind of like it, that way. It's not the romanticized look on Expedition back in these days.
Anno is a very hopeful franchise, you know? It's very bright and colorful and lovely, and I think that the dark writing kind of adds to that atmosphere a little bit. That's all I really have to say.
That makes sense for maybe like the first expedition of finding the new world. But for instance, one of the ones I did was I wanted some animals for my zoo, and that's one of the easiest ways to get them is to go out on an expedition.
Right.
I had a great big boat, filled it up with loads of stuff, sausage and alcohol and clothes, and put a captain in there, and I'd got a gun on the front of it, you know, like pretty much as at the point of the game I was in the best situation I could be, and I was literally going to find some animals. It wasn't this crazy new world. I wasn't like discovering Mexico for the first time. Yet even still, every choice I made, all I was deciding was how much of my morale I was losing, whether it was 5% or 10%. And occasionally it would have been nice for one of those choices to maybe say, do you know what? You've hunted really well, so we're going to give you a bonus animal at the end, or something like that. I never felt that there was a positive side of them. It was just how less negative you could make them, I guess. But I still think they're a really good feature, and I'm glad they're in the game.
Isn't basically the reward that you get at the end of the mission the positive feedback that you...
Yeah, but you'd get that reward if you were on 1% morale or 100% morale.
I just realized you're the bad guys in Tarzan.
Okay, so now since we already talked about some of our issues, like Expedition for Johnny, let's talk about issues that we have in the beta and probably will be in the full game as well. Blind, I think this one is yours.
So I complain a lot about UI. I think the UI in this game's massive. I miss the days, and I know that this is not easy for developers to do, so I don't actually expect this to make it into the final of the game, but I miss the days of scalable UIs, and I miss the days of modular UI. There's certain portions of the UI that I would like to be bigger, and certain portions I would like to be smaller. I just turn off the minimap because it's completely useless for me. I can't see it. There's no way for me to make it bigger. I would love to make the toolbar smaller with all the different building options. And then there's, again, other portions of the UI that I would like to make smaller. My main issue with the UI of the game is that there are just some things that appear and disappear too quickly. Like a event will pop up and it will literally vanish before I have time to read it, let alone see it. Now, sometimes these events are voiced, but the voice doesn't necessarily state what the event was. So one of the other factions will appear and be like, hey, our relationship improves. And I'll be like, what the heck just happened? And then how do I go and find out what that person just did? Well, it turns out they gave me 2,500 credits for some reason. But at the same time, it's like, well, what even was that? Because I didn't have the chance to read it. And I think that this is even more so an issue with the more guidance turned on, because they have these little hint pop-ups that are just like, hey, build this building to do this, which are useful. But they often pop up randomly in the screen and they vanish before I even read them. So I turned the feature off because it was completely useless to me. I think that all windows need like a little X thing that you have to manually X out of, so that I can do that. And oh yeah, one other problem that I had is it took me about an hour to notice the little green zones. So the on the roads, when you build a building, it shows the distance at which it can travel in green, and that little green zone is almost completely invisible to me. I know a viewer of mine who is colorblind couldn't see them at all, and there is no colorblind mode in the game that I was able to find in the options. I would like a mode that makes that significantly more visible. As
Schematics resident colorblind person, I can totally agree with that. Yeah, it's I can just about tell, but it's really quite difficult. All they need to do, it's a dead easy fix. They just need to make it grayscale and just make white be good and black be not, and like that will work for 99% of people with color deficiency.
Yeah, but regardless, I couldn't see the distance that buildings go really without zooming in or angling the camera so that there's nothing blocking it, and I could see exactly where that line was.
And I guess it's a beta thing, but some buildings don't show it either. I don't think warehouses show how far they can go. But again, that feels like a bug as opposed to a design feature.
Yeah, and it's funny because I remember back to 2205 and 2070, those lines were way more obvious.
Mine are kind of similar, really. Little things, really. Just the readability in general needs a little bit tightening up, if I'm honest. It took me a long time to figure out how to send a ship to the new world once the original expedition was done. Turns out there's just like a little button on the ship's window that you click and it'll send it across. Just things like that, I think, it could do with a bit of and the info panel on the left that's got sort of quests, emergencies, other stuff, newspaper, exhibit. I feel like that's unnecessarily divided as well. I want just one list of stuff the game needs to tell me, I think would probably be okay.
Yeah, I agree with that. I like the UI. Which I really like about the UI is when, for example, you kind of need wood, that you click on the wood icon and then it gives you the whole production line of it. And I kind of like that because it's often you have to remember which buildings you needed to produce certain resources, and this one gives you a really clean and easy look on how to produce it, which I really, really like. But let's talk about the performance and bugs we encountered.
Mine's been pretty good, to be honest with you. I mean, I haven't like filled islands and stuff, but I haven't really noticed much of a frame rate issue. And bug-wise, I really can't think of any major things. Occasionally, I feel like the horse and carts kind of just hang a bit. But again, yeah, overall, I like I said at the beginning of the video, I think it's really, really polished for a beta.
I did start to see performance issues. Granted, I don't have the newest PC. I have a i7 4770K processor and a 1070 graphics card and not an optimal amount of RAM. But I did have the game installed on an SSD, but I was getting City Skylines frame rates on large map on endgame. I then did a playthrough on small map with small islands, and that was significantly better. I think it's got to do with the number of people on the streets. For example, it actually takes a while for them to all spawn in. So when I load up one of my old saves, the frame rate's actually great. It runs at like solid 60. But then slowly, as more of the little individual units spawn and they start coming out and going about their business, things start to slow down. I wouldn't say it's unplayable, but especially when I was streaming, it was very noticeable on the stream. When I wasn't streaming, I tested it. It was about the same. So I do think that this game does have some performance problems. Granted, yes, I know there will always be the one person in chat who says, well, it's a city builder. It doesn't need that. It doesn't need the greatest frame rate. That's fine. I agree, but it's nice.
Yeah, I can agree with that. I don't encounter any performance issues on my end. The only bugs I encountered are that the escorts mission seemed to be a little bit broken on my end. Sometimes it's even hard for missions to get triggered, or at least get your reward for the mission, because you have your ship and you tell your ship to go to the next lighthouse to cash in practically the mission, and you do other stuff while your ship is sailing over there. And if you're still building something or trying to figure out something, you might want to not cash in the mission immediately. But then the window, we talked about it earlier, disappears, and you basically have to go to your ship and go away from the lighthouse and go there again, and sometimes it triggers it and sometimes it doesn't, at least for me. But these are small issues. I think they can totally figure that out till release date.
And that's the sort of thing I think they're going to be working on now, just these little sort of, the actual core gameplay is there, the graphics are all there and everything. It's just these little tweaks. Oh, those I know they're not going to go away, but the little quests you get occasionally, little stars on your map, they can do one. They're rubbish. I'm not interested in those at all. I'd like to be able to turn them off in Sandbox. So a little dude will pop up and he's like, "Can you help me find my pigs?" And then you have to play the worst ever game of Where's Waldo for 20 minutes, and then he gives you 5 flour at the end of it. Or one of them was like, you had to go and find a kid walking around, and I got 20 sausages. I'm like, that wasn't that 20 minutes of my time wasn't worth 20 sausages. So yeah, they can clear off.
I got the one with take a photo of newlyweds. And I was
Wow.
obviously I was going to the church and was looking at the front entrance for the newlyweds, not knowing they were standing at the back entrance. And I searched them for like 15 minutes, and I was like, "Oh, fuck this shit, I'm out."
Yeah, they can go away. I can understand why they're doing them, to give you that little bit of reason to look around and a little bit of playability. But yeah, they don't work anywhere near as well as the expeditions do for that kind of thing, I don't think.
Are you looking forward to play the full game?
I'll play it. I don't know how long it'll hold my attention, but I'll play it. Like I said, once you kind of figure out the formula for these games, they kind of lose the magic for me a little bit. But for me, I will play it, and I will hopefully get a decent amount of time out of it, and I very much hope that my complaints are better, and I hope that the performance is a little bit better, because then I will very much enjoy it, and I think this game will take a week of my time. Looking forward to it.
Before Jonty answers with his conclusion, do you think the beta or playing the beta hurt your experience in the full game?
Yeah, no, I understand that. I think part of me thinks that when the full game comes out, the first sort of 2 to 5 hours will just be getting where I was up to in the beta in some ways, yeah, unless there's some crazy changes that I just don't foresee. I think it is going to be a bit of a, right, okay, let's get some artisans set up then, because we've done all that, and see what's next. I believe there's going to be 2 more tiers, if that's right, I think. But yeah, no, overall, I'm really excited for the full release. Anno surprised me, to be honest, because like I say, I'm new to the series. I didn't realize that it was going to be this sort of production line based city builder, but I've really enjoyed it. I think it's very pretty. I think a lot of for me personally, as a person that likes to play games creatively and to make them look pretty, all the ornaments and stuff really excite me, and the zoos and all the sort of stuff that we haven't seen yet but we know are coming because of the time period and because of the original trailers, like the Crystal Palaces, the whole World's Fair thing that we haven't seen yet. So I'm really looking forward to all of that. But yeah, I think as a beta it's done really well. I don't really understand why it's called a closed beta, because like my grandma got a key for this.
It's the most open closed beta I've seen in a minute, but it is a legit beta though. It's nice to see a beta that people don't need to pre-order to get into.
Yeah, that's it. It's a solid beta. Like you get access for it for like 4 days, and it's going away again. Like you say, it's not a pre-order thing. Anyone can play it and then come away again. But yeah, one of the better betas I've played, and yeah, I think the developers have been really active. They fixed some of the multiplayer was a bit of a arse when it first came out, and they threw a few patches out, so it hasn't just been a sort of advertising beta. But yeah, I think it's impressed a lot of people. I think for people who are fans of the series, from what I can tell, they're happy that it's kind of going back to its roots a little bit, and yeah, I'm really excited for release. I think it's really impressed me.
I'm gonna make it really short. I'm really looking forward to play Anno. No idea how long it lasts though, but that's my issue with the Anno franchise, and I'm not really into the multiplayer aspect of Anno. Anyway guys, thanks Jonty for joining.
I'm always happy to be here.
And thanks to you guys out there watching the video. If you enjoyed the video, smash the hit and hit the smash button. If you really enjoyed this video, you may want to consider doing the extra step over to Coffee to buy Ed a coffee, because he will need the coffee as ration to go on his next expedition to wherever he want to go. And I have honestly no clue why we allow him to go on an expedition, because he should edit our videos. Anyway guys, thanks a lot for listening again. See you next time. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.